Hi, my name is Kelly Johnstone. I'm the head of content at the Stay Short Group. We're a leading provider of travel insurance in the UK, and our brands include Stay Short and Avanti. And today I'd like to talk to you about how to use data to drive the decision to cull content. So before I begin, I want to take you back in time and tell you my story about how I used data to drive the decision to cull content when I first started at the Stay Short Group. So 3 years ago, started a new job and had a new website. So I decided to do a content audit because that's what you do when you start a new job. So in this content audit, I had a look at how many blog posts we had and had a look at the commercial pages. And what I found from that report was that we had 1,400 blog posts. Pretty much the blog was used as a place to throw content rather than a place where content was evergreen. So once a post was published, that was it, and it was left. So I decided to turn that around. What I couldn't do though was read all of those articles because obviously I had commercial pages that I needed to focus on as well. So I decided to look at the data, see what the data told me as to what posts I should be focusing my efforts on and which ones were actually okay to get rid of. By the end of my journey, we then only had 265 blog posts, which is, if you do the maths there, a lot less. And that shows you that there was a lot there that we had that wasn't actually providing any value. And I know that it wasn't providing any value because I've looked at the data and I know that they weren't contributing to leads or sales. They weren't increasing someone's brand perception of us. So they were okay to get rid of. Doing this resulted in a 25% drop in traffic to the blog. Now, you may think, well, that's quite a lot. But actually, I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with that because that traffic wasn't of value. If people are landing on your site and it's for the wrong reasons and it isn't related to what you do and isn't going to help them convert, isn't going to help them have a better perception of you in your realm, and doesn't give you more authority in the topics that you should be talking about, then it's okay to get rid of. And I'll show you why through this talk. The blogs that we got rid of were the ones that didn't have value. So everything that remained had value and served a purpose. So if it doesn't serve a purpose, then it can go. So what didn't make the cut and why? Well, the sorts of posts that we got rid of were like pancake recipes, and it might have been the best pancake recipe in the world, but you have to think about what you sell and whether or not that's relevant for your audience. So we sell travel insurance, so talking about pancake recipes just isn't really going to cut it, much as it might have been a really good recipe. So we got rid of it. The next sorts of articles we got rid of weren't relevant, but could have been relevant. So, for example, life insurance jargon buster. Sounds good enough, and actually, we ranked really well for this, and it drove the majority of the traffic that we got rid of. And we got rid of it because we don't sell life insurance anymore. So it just wasn't relevant to keep anymore. And I used data to prove that it wasn't driving conversions. It wasn't even driving conversions later down the line. So it wasn't of use, and we got rid of it. When it comes to getting rid of content, there's two sorts of people in the world. And I'd be really interested to hear what sort of person you are. So let me know, send me a tweet. So the two sorts of people are Spider Girls and Thanoses. So if you're a Spider Girl, then you'll be driven by the thought that with great power comes great responsibility. You have a site that's full of content and you can't bear to get rid of any of that because what if it's useful? What if you could repurpose it and then suddenly it blooms to life again? And then you get the Thanoses of the world who are more along the lines of, I don't really care, I'll get rid of it. That's not to say that one of these people are better than the other. just that there are two sorts of thinking when it comes to it. Some people find it easier to get rid of content than others. For both of these people, using data to drive your decision to cull content can help you feel empowered with those decisions. It can help you make good choices and make sure that you're making the right choices for your business. So now you've heard my story, I'm going to tell you how to do it yourself. We're going to start with how to find blog posts and pages that haven't had any visits, so the ones that are of no value that you can get rid of. We're then going to focus on what to do with the messy middle and looking at pages that have high traffic and extra considerations that you may want to look into before you make that decision to delete. The first thing that we're going to look at is how to find invisible data. So on the outset, it might look like it's really easy to find those pages that have no visits and just delete them. But actually, it's a bit harder than that, because when you look at tools like Google Analytics, they won't show you pages that haven't had any visits, because a visit is only triggered when someone visits the page. So if Analytics isn't tracking that page, or at least it is, but no one's visited, then how do you find that data? To do that, we need to do a little bit more work. The first thing you need to do is to create an index of the pages that you want to look at. A good place to start with this is taking your sitemap, but you might also have other pages that you need to add. For example, if you have paid pages that are variables that you're testing that aren't indexed, you might want to make sure that you're adding those, as adding the sitemap on its own isn't going to include all of your pages. The next thing you need to do is to download your visit data from the past year. Now, I say a year because of seasonality. If you sold, for example, Christmas crackers that you'd presume would be seasonal for October, November, December, October for those crazy people that get things in really early. But if you only looked at your data from, say, February, then that sort of product would look like it's not as popular. So you might use that data to drive the decision to delete those pages when actually seasonality comes into effect. So it's really important that you pull that data from a year. You might have a problem doing that. If you don't have Google Analytics 360 or other tools that you can pull data from a year, then you might need to pull that data into smaller chunks. And you might need to do that to make sure that you're downloading accurate data, because otherwise the data that you'll be looking at won't be accurate. You'll next want to think about whether or not you need to look at all traffic or whether you need to break that down into your channel segments. So whether you want to look at the traffic that's been driven through organic or email or any other channel that is important to you for this report to see what traffic has been driving to the pages in the past year. When you're doing your report and pulling out your data, you'll need to keep an eye out for parameters. Parameters, I think, are a bit pesky in that I just find them really annoying because it messes with your data. I want to look at things on a page level, and pulling out parameters means that it looks like there's multiple pages when actually there aren't. So to combine that data, you need to fix them. And you can do this in Excel or Google Sheets. This is the formula that you need to use. So make sure that you screenshot this or have a look at the presentation afterwards. It will all be available online. This formula replaces anything that has a parameter at the end and replaces it back to the normal URL. So it's really helpful, and you can do this with all sorts, but it's helpful for parameters. Now, at this point, you should have your index and you should have your data. This might take quite a while to do, but it's important to make sure that your accurate is data. Your data is accurate. So the next thing you need to do is to compare the compare your data ranges. So use a VLOOKUP against your index to find those pages that have a 0 visit. And because you've looked at things like parameters, you will be looking at a page level, so you won't have duplicate data to think about. This then gives you your list of 0 visit pages that can't be aligned with any visits. Now, for the people that are the spider girls of the world, this is the scary part, because this is the part that you get rid of them, and it might be quite a lot of them. And it's really important to consider, if you are in doubt, cut it out. You really need to think about the data. So the data has told you that nobody has landed on this page or visited this page in a year. If nobody's seen this page, it's not providing any value to you whatsoever. So there's no risk in getting rid of it because no one's seen it. So less of the just in case, and we'll just get it out to streamline your site. The one thing you might need to consider are your links. Obviously, if this page hasn't had any visits in the past year, it means that no links have passed any visitors from one site to your site through these. But they might still be of value, so it's worth thinking about if you have any links that have any value to make sure that you redirect them. Next, we go on to the slightly messier topic of the messy middles and the high value. And this is where you really need to consider what is valuable when it comes to a visit. Whether that's just a volume of visits. So when you're getting rid of your 0 visits, do you actually want to take that up to like 10 visits, 50 visits, or does every visit count? That's really up to you as to what you think is valuable and how much of a cull you want to do in order for you to focus on the things that have true value. So when we're looking at what is valuable, you need to consider the bigger picture. And the bigger picture here is whether or not it helps drive conversions, whether or not it helps to increase your brand perception, or things like increasing email signups, those softer metrics, but the ones that are still important as an upper funnel activity. To find that data, you've already done the hard work. You've created the index, you've already done the VLOOKUP, so you already have that data. So using that data as your base, you then know which pages are the ones that have a bit of traffic and which ones have a lot of traffic landing on them. When you're looking at your data, and especially the pages that have had a lot of visits, you might not want to just keep those just in case or because they're driving traffic. So more doesn't always equal better. If we're talking about a donut that's the size of your face and shaped like Mickey Mouse, then it is better. But with visits, they're not all equal. As I said earlier, with my example of the life insurance post that we got rid of, that drove a lot of traffic and it ranked really well. But you need to be bold in your decisions as to which blog posts to get rid of. If it doesn't help in your overall aims, then it isn't actually driving any value for you, so they are okay to get rid of. So if a post isn't giving you any value, and we'll go through how to find that out, then it's okay to throw it away. We know that not all visits will convert. If they did, then we would all be really good at our jobs. We would also be really poor because every time we visited a website, we'd have to buy something. So I think we'd probably be more selective about the websites we visit and probably not visit our competitors as much. So because we know that doesn't happen, we know that the world is a bit more messier when it comes to people's actual activity before they buy. They could land on your site, then go away, read something else, come back next week, go away again, do something else, and then come back and convert, either with you or with someone else, or maybe not even at all. But being able to analyze that and find that and being able to attribute value is quite difficult. It's not as easy as it should be. So what we need to do is to look at attribution. So here someone converts at stage 3, so they land back on the site and they buy. And in Google Analytics, a lot of the reports that you'll see will be attributed to this system. So it will look at the very last visit and will attribute 100% of that conversion to whatever drove that. But we know that it's not that simple. So that person actually landed a couple of weeks ago, landed on a blog post, read it, loved it, went away, saw an advert maybe on Facebook, came back through there, thought, oh great, I might come back and buy this, looked at a few competitors and then came back. But looking at traditional reports in analytics will mean that you're only looking at that step 3. What we're interested in is those other steps and making sure that you're looking at the attribution of other pages. This is really important, especially when you're looking at culling content, because if you accidentally cull content, for example, step 1, that's a blog post, because it's had visits but it hasn't had conversions or no email sign-ups, actually that was part of that person's journey. We're not always going to capture that all the time because of the limitations of analytics. But what we can do is look at attribution models and use that data where it does suggest that things are helping to make sure that we're keeping that content that is upper funnel that does aid conversions. To do that, if you go into the attribution report, you'll need to change the dimension from channel to landing page URL. They don't make this particularly easy as it's kind of hidden, not an automatic option, as I think most people use attribution modeling to look at channels rather than on a page level. But from a content point of view, it's helpful to look at it on a landing page level to see what content has helped rather than what channel has helped. What this won't do is tell you pages where people haven't landed but where it's been part of the journey. So it's worth just considering that if you have any pages that you're analysing that aren't designed as landing pages. The next thing you'll need to do in this report is to look at your goals. So all of your goals will automatically be set no matter what you're tracking. So you'll need to go in and change the goals to the ones that you actually think might contribute from this blog post or product page, whatever you're reviewing. That might be conversions, that might be softer things like email signups. Whatever it is, make sure that you are analysing against the goals that you think this should be contributing to. Finally, I can't stress this enough if I haven't already drilled this into you, that if something doesn't bring you value, it's okay to get rid of it. It's really important that you make sure that you're finding that value before you get rid of it and make sure that you are clear in that decision that it's the right thing to do. It's a bit like when you're making a photo album, that you'll have old-fashioned photo album, that you'll have lots of pictures. You might not want to add all of them, and some of them might get discarded, especially now that we take loads of pictures on our phones. But the posts and pages that you should be keeping are the ones that would end up in that photo album, so that no matter what page someone lands on, they're getting the best experience possible from your site. Now you know how to make informed decisions about culling content. So I really hope that you've enjoyed this talk and that you've learned a lot. So thank you very much. Please send me a tweet at JellyOSEO and tag it with BrightonSEO. Thank you very much. Bye.